Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Come on in. I'm going to encourage everybody to come up to the front row once again. Hope you guys had a nice break. We're able to network, meet a few people, and get settled back in as we dive back in. I'm thrilled to be introducing Michael Oxton of Night Shift Brewery. He is here to talk about how he founded his company and started in a very crowded market. For those of you that know Boston well, or maybe at the Red Sox game last night, know that we take beer very seriously here in Boston. And as such, he is succeeding and standing out in a really crowded market here in town. While they don't sell Night Shift here at the Revere, I definitely encourage all of you guys on your evening plans and dinner before you go to Limelight to definitely try to find some and cheers with it. So without further ado, I'll invite Michael to come up on stage and talk about founding his company, and we're going to cheers ourselves.
Hello. I wish I could say that drinking beer this early in the day was like unusual for me, but it's actually not, which is so weird. It's usually samples. We do a lot of our sampling early in the day just to like see how stuff's going. So thank you for having me. I'm super pumped to be here, and I'm hoping to just kind of walk through our story today. If we want to just go to the next slide, I'll talk about quickly just like what the theme is. But basically, we started really small and we've grown really quickly, and it's been a totally wild ride, and I think we've learned some really interesting things along the way. And so if I can share that with you guys and talk beer, which is just always fun, I think we'll have a good time. So I've titled it Failing Forward at Night Shift Brewing.
Sorry.
Oh, thank you. I'm assuming this will do it. And I think honestly, like a lot of what we've contributed to our success has been coming from our failures. And so I'd love to just emphasize this theme of failing small, taking really big or really small risks to learn from that and sort of evolve your company and how that's been super successful for us. So I think this will move me forward. Cool. So just a quick little overview of who we are. I started the company back in 2012 is when we launched with two co-founders, Mike and Rob. Before that, we were homebrewers. And so I graduated Bowdoin College. Go Bowdoin. Yeah. I graduated Bowdoin in 2007 with Rob, and we started homebrewing almost immediately out of the gate, and it was super passion-driven. We didn't really know what we were doing, but we just kind of like learned along the way. And after 5 years of homebrewing, we were having this discussion of, is this going to be just a really expensive hobby forever? Or are we going to actually do something with it? And ultimately, we decided to try a brewery. And we started really, really small, and it's just kind of taken off. But I'd love to just kind of walk through that journey. Mike also joined us homebrewing. So the three of us together started it. And I was like employee number one. Rob and Mike were 2 and 3. And we now have like over 220 people, which is like a terrifying thing to say. So the quick hit summary is, overview of who we are. Passion-driven business. It was started out of our love for homebrewing. We're still very independent. Myself, Rob, and Mike own 80% of the company collectively, and the rest is friends and family. We've been profitable every year, which has just been amazing. We didn't expect to make any money off of this. I think our friends and family who invested in us thought it was a nice donation, and they would never see that money again. We've experienced about 200 times growth over an 8-year period. Like I said, we have 200 staff, and we're on this mission to create better, and that's sort of like our mantra that we use around the brewery. It's just what we emphasize to our staff. So the theme today is, embracing risk through failure. I'm hoping to give some examples of how that's worked for us. I would just say, like, inherent to doing anything new is going to be failure, and like accepting that has been like for us the key to so much of our success. Learning quickly, solving new problems. Like, we love solving problems. That's how we've challenged ourselves and built our business, and ultimately, failing forward to evolve and create better. So going back to the start, like I said, lots of home brewing. We only raised 150K capital to start, 3 underpaid staff. We started in a tiny space in Everett, 1,500 square feet of space. It's been bulldozed since. It's where the Wynn Casino is now. But I like to say we set the groundwork for them to take off. We're in a different space in Everett now. Lots of passion, but we definitely had a lot more ignorance than anything else. And I think you have to. That's okay. Oh, this picture, by the way, was taken after our first brew day ever, 4:36 in the morning. It was a true night shift brew. We started actually pretty early in the day, but we were just so bad at it. It took us up until about 4:36, and so we took a photo of that just to commemorate it. And it would be silly not to say, Night Shift Brewing came about the name from the fact that we had day jobs by day, or desk jobs by day and homebrewed by night back in our early homebrewing days, and that's kind of where we named ourselves. This is us brewing in our Somerville kitchen, and then in 2012 we launched, and I don't know how we got this, but Improper Bostonian thought we were worthy of getting this like big full-page picture in like our first few days. I don't know how this happened, but it was like the best press we've ever gotten. But that was us like literally in the middle of a brew session. Like those aren't props. Like that was me brewing, and then I ran over and took a photo. This is what it looked like on a given brew day. Total disaster, but that was kind of like a clean day for us. Really, really small. In the beginning, we were doing all cork and cage bottles. So big champagne bottles, and I think anyone who knows our beer now, it's mostly cans. And so that would be, I say, one of our early like sort of mistakes. Although it worked for us then, we had to evolve from it. Bottles, the industry just like did not adapt bottles into sort of larger sales, and we ultimately had to just sort of say no to that approach. But in the beginning, it was all hand bottled. We wrote on every single label, which was just a nightmare. But we thought like, it's part of the story is like this is handcrafted, and we thought that was worth it. And there was a lot of volunteer help as well. So a lot of those people that were helping us were just people that gave their nights to just give us a hand. And I'm like one of the proudest things I think I have for our company is that we hired 3 of our volunteers, actually 4 of our volunteers from the early days, and they now all have like full-time jobs with us. One of our other big things in the beginning was all shifted beers. We said we would never do an IPA. If you know our beer, like that's kind of what we do, not exclusively, but a lot of right now. All of our flagships are mostly IPAs. So again, like we came out into the industry with this mindset of like shifted everything. It's got to be weird, funky, nothing hoppy, because that's what everyone does. And we stuck with that for a while. Habanero rye ales, sour ales. Some of the more shifted stuff ultimately proved unsuccessful as sort of like a large-scale sales model. We did learn to capitalize on the sour growth, and so we've invested in that heavily, and we ultimately learned how to brew really good hoppy beers. But again, that took like a huge shift for us to go from like never brewing an IPA to 80+% of our production is hoppy. One of the other keys to our success has been owning our own distribution. In the very early days, we delivered everything out of a Subaru. That's Rob's Subaru that he still drives today. I was our delivery guy and sales guy at the time. And I'd run around to accounts and just drop it off. And we ultimately stuck with this model. We've evolved it a lot since, but I think maintaining tight control over how our business grew and sort of spoke to our clients was a really big deal. You kind of have 2 approaches. You either do it all yourself, or if you want someone else to sell it, you sign up with a distributor and you basically sell them your beer and then they sell it for you and deliver it for you. In Massachusetts, not enough people know this, but if you sign with a distributor, you're locked into that contract for life. It's like a marriage with no divorce. And if they are not performing well for you, you cannot get out of that contract unless you go through this really lengthy legal battle. It's totally insane, and we are fighting against it. One of our founders, Rob, is president of the Mass Brewers Guild, and he's like constantly working to lobby against it. But anyway, we've taken an opposite approach. We said no to the distributors, and we've actually started our own distributor, which I'll talk about soon. As the years went by, we moved to a different facility. This is our new location in Everett, and just our fan base grew. I think a lot of it from just like us being able to talk to people at our tap room, and then really focusing on our local market. We still only distribute in Massachusetts, New York, Connecticut's just this year, in Maine. And we really avoided the idea of sort of spreading ourselves too thin and going all over the US. And so like a really deep, not wide market, and just paying like huge focus to like your local customers and just giving them like constant attention has just proved really awesome for us. This was just our new space that we opened with before anyone was actually in it. And we went from, I don't know how to go back, but we went from 90 square feet, our original tap room, to 2,500. And we really, a lot of our business was built on this sort of brand experience at our tap room. Our brewery was upgraded as well. So we went from this tiny brewery that's basically glorified home brewing, what we started with, to around 2014, it was like a 7-fold increase on our brewing system size. So that was just fueled by basically customers buying our beer. Like, we have never really set sort of a volume target. We exceeded our sort of business plan goals after about 3 years. We were in sort of year 10 of the business plan, so like then we didn't know what to do. And we've always been trying to be driven by customer demand as opposed to sort of like, we're gonna make this and we'll figure out a way to sell it. Ultimately, we did have to move towards hoppy beer, cans, and flagships, which were like 3 things we never thought we'd do. But bottles weren't selling for us, so we questioned that whole model, bought a canning line, and totally shifted our packaging. We started with some small batches of hoppy beers in about 2013, and those just took off. And so again, we like totally questioned our model of like, all right, do we say no to hoppy beers or actually just like totally embrace that? And we invested really big, and Santilli and Whirlpool are now sort of like our 2 biggest flagships. But it was night and day from how we started. And we also evolved our distribution model, so we went from kegs in a Subaru, buckled in. I think I took that as a joke shot, but it was like kind of serious, like they'd wobble around otherwise. Then we upgraded to a Sprinter van, and then we now have a fleet of box trucks that are all refrigerated. And I think one of our big keys to success was sort of recognizing when something is working really well for us to just like invest bigger and bigger in that. And I would say distribution is probably like one of the core tenets to sort of how we've grown. 2016 to 2017 were like huge growth years for us. That's when we added a lot of staff. I won't dive too deep into it, but I think like one of the things we learned during those years was just like, culture really matters. It used to just be like a bunch of us all in a room hanging out talking. Suddenly not everyone's in the room, and how you communicate to the rest of your people is a really big deal. And how you hire and how you fire is a really big deal. We had to let go of some people during those years. It was incredibly difficult. But we forced ourselves to figure out like, what is the night shift fit? And that took a lot of time, but once you figure that out, you should be able, at least we've found you can really roll with it. During that time, we invested in a new canning line, bigger tanks. We had some big wins, strong recognition from the local community of just like what we were doing. It actually was successful, as demonstrated by just like, some awesome awards and reviews. Really big deal for us was launching the distributor business in 2017, or late 2016. We went from self-distributing to actually creating a distributor that's its own legal entity. So Night Shift Brewing sells beers to Night Shift Distributing, and that sort of allows us to not sign with a big distributor and give up our rights forever, but sort of control our own destiny. And what's been really fun is we also offer that model to other breweries now. So we can basically be that solution, and we say to anyone who wants to sign with us, like, we will not hold you into a contract for life. If we're not doing work for you, you can totally get out, and hopefully we are doing right by you, so you'll stay with us. But it's not a marriage for life. So far, so good. And then 2018 to 2019, our distributor business really grew there. We've tried to invest in distributing other products beyond just beer. So we've gotten into, this is sort of like one of the decks we use to talk to accounts, but it's like, cashew milk is your breakfast, coffee, your workout drink with maple water, and then wine in the evening. So we distribute some of these brands. We've learned a lot as well about expanding outside of beer. And I'll talk soon about it, but we've really looked, or we're now looking to not just be a beer business, but a beverage business. I would say our other huge investment has been in light beer. Nightlight is this brand that like we never thought was going to do anything. You know, Bud Light, Miller Lite, like these huge macro brands out there. We've sort of started our business being like that is the opposite of what we'd ever do. And we produce some really small batches of this stuff, and it's a light lager. It tastes better than Bud Light, but it's not like, you know, wildly different. And like it's sold out, and people loved it because it was craft light beer, and it did taste better. And we saw that, and we were like, okay, there's something special here. Let's invest more. And ultimately, we decided, let's attack the macro space. So what we're doing is we're going after Bud Light and Miller Lite. It's really interesting. Like light beer is the biggest category of beer out there, and if you look at the chart of sales, it's like 50% of beer sales are light beer sales. So why would we let the macro brands own that themselves? Like why give them that? Let's take a slice of that pie and just like stop competing against all the craft breweries. So I mean, we still do that. We produce a lot of more craft-oriented stuff, but light beer for us has been like a really interesting investment. And between Limelight, which we just launched this year, and Nightlight, if you combine those two, they're now the #1 brand in our portfolio, which is like, it's so weird to say that. And then we've really invested in sours as well. So we started with really small batches of sours, and that was, I think it's really wonderful to be able to have kept that alive because it's a weird style of beer. Not everyone loves it, and it was really hard to make the transition from bottles to cans. Because there's all sorts of contamination stuff that can happen when you use a canning line for sour. But we solved those problems because we saw an opportunity there. And we're now like sort of one of the preeminent sellers of sour beer, canned sour beer in the Northeast. And then 2019 and beyond, I'll touch on it quickly, but like we opened a Boston location really recently. It's a restaurant, brewery, coffee bar. And that was really our commitment to sort of be like a Boston brand with a Boston zip code. And really capitalize on like creating taproom experiences for people where you can connect with the brand. Coffee roasting is our latest thing. So we're roasting coffee out of Chelsea. It's really small batches right now. And I kind of see it as how we started beer back in 2012 is like, let's start small, make a ton of mistakes early on, but when you're small, you can make a lot of mistakes. And just learn from those, figure out what's not working, figure out what is working, but like question everything constantly. We try not to assess what our results are, but what our decisions are. And if you question your decision making, we've seen it pay off dividends. Limelight I talked about. Hard seltzer. I don't know if anyone's paying attention to the beverage industry. Hard seltzer is doing this. We'd be crazy to just ignore that. All of last year we made hard seltzer batches that nobody saw because it was disgusting and we couldn't figure out how to make it good. Drove us nuts. And then this year we finally just tweaked some stuff on our recipe side, and we've put out some really, really solid, like good tasting hard seltzer. So we think it's worth investing in, but like we didn't want to do it wrong and put out a crappy product. So a lot of R&D, a lot of money went into just like hard seltzer, go down the drain. But we finally have a product that I'm really proud of, and started small. We'll probably fail a lot, and then hopefully we can grow it. Now in New York and Maine and Connecticut. Like I said, we've tried to keep a pretty concentrated market, focusing on sort of deep, not wide market distribution. Connecticut being our latest thing, and then Philly, we're not in it yet, but our latest announcement was that we're actually opening up a large production facility within Philadelphia, and that's really us just realizing that we're still not producing enough beer. We can't produce enough in Everett, and to solve that problem is just like okay. We got to find a space where we can produce more. And so 2 of the founders are from Philly, so it's a nice little homecoming for them, and it allows us to continue expanding and growing. So still making mistakes. That was a slide that I intended to finish and never did, and it was just me talking about still making mistakes, which I've done. So it was more of a reminder that I forgot to delete. But I got it in there. And then this is just, I just think this is fun to sort of show like 200 barrels was our first year, 2012 is what we made, and then we're hoping to do 40,000 barrels this year. So totally wild growth. I can't really believe that like that's where we've gone. It's taken the support of all of our customers and an enormous, awesome staff to get us there. And I really do think like that growth has happened because we've just we've failed in a lot of different ways, and like instead of, well, first of all, I think we've embraced failing as just an idea. Like we've accepted that that's just like what you have to do, and then just insisting to sort of learn on that or learn from that and evolve our company. We're so different than when we started. I think has been so key to our success. And that is it. So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Cheers.